Today's throwback. Hassan Dantata, Dangote's great-grandfather, richest Nigerians, quote-unquote, of the 1800s and the early 1900s, and the timeless lessons we must learn from them for lasting riches. Hassan Dantata was born in 1877 in what is now Bebeji town of Bebeji local government of Kano Emirate, in the original but now defunct 19th century Sokoto Caliphate, which encompassed the substantial parts, if not literally all, of today's northwest Nigeria and northward to Niger Republic and beyond. He was one of several children of Abdullahi and his wife Maria. Abdullahi was the son of Babata Latin. It was Babata Latin who brought the family from Katsina to Madobi in Kano following the death of his father called Ali. Abdullahi continued to operate from Madobi until 1877, when, having set out for a journey to Gonja, the main market of kola nut trade in Gold Coast, now Ghana, his wife gave birth to Hassan at the itinerant campsite, colloquially called Zango, of the then rustic Bebeji conurbation. Upon his return from the journey, he decided to make Bebeji his family's full place of residence. It should, however, be noted that both parents of Abdullahi were wealthy Agalawa, a hereditary group of itinerant long-distance traders in the Hausa Empire. Abdullahi's children were too young to manage his considerable wealth when he died in 1885. They all received their portion according to Islamic law when he died. Dantata's mother, Maria, like her mother-in-law, was also a very wealthy trader in her own right. After her husband's death, she decided to leave Bebeji for the Gold Coast, where she had trading concerns. She left the children, including Dantata, in Bebeji in custody and care of an old slave woman named Tata. Don't be shocked. Serfdom, often called slavery, was still very prevalent in the Islamic Caliphate then. Dantata was still a teenager when the Great Upheaval occurred in Kano Emirate from 1893 to 1895. There were two claimants to the Kano Emirate when Emir Muhammad Bello died in 1893. Tuko of the Tijaniya sect, like the Agarawas, was Bello's son, but Yusufu of the Qadriya sect had been passed over when Bello became emir. In the resulting sectarian-fueled civil war of succession to emirship, Yusufu's forces were victorious over Tukos and he claimed the Alot title. Because of the Agalawa's sectarian support of Tuko, Dantata and the other Agalawas had their property seized by the new emir and many were captured. Dantata and his brothers were held for ransom under the threat of slavery. They had to buy their freedom out of captivity, and Dantata returned to the trading business without his dispossessed family lands around Kano. Probably after being freed from captivity around 1894, Dantata joined a Gonja in the Gold Coast-bound caravan to see Maria, his mother, who had earlier relocated there. He purchased some items in Kano, the biggest and most cosmopolitan city of the sprawling Sokoto Caliphate then. He sold half of them on the way and the rest in Accra. He might have hoped his wealthy mother would allow him to live with her and find him work among the Gold Coast Agalawa community, but this did not happen. After a rest of only one day, she took him to a Malam and asked Dantata to stay there until he was ready to return to Kano. He was literally subjected to all the indignities of a classical almajiri as we know it today. As was the tradition, the bulk of his earnings went to his Malam. At some point, out of sheer frustration, he returned to his former madrasa or Quranic school in Bebeji, Kano, to his religious studies and work. There, Tata, the old slave carer, continued to insist that he must save something every year. Dantata started to be a long-distance trader himself. He remained in Bebeji until matters had settled down. He used the new trade routes that the British colonial architecture between the colony of Lagos and the Southern Protectorate nearly opened to broaden his trading routes to Ibadan and Lagos to develop his network of trading associates. Instead of bringing kola-nuts from Ghana to the bustling market that the populous Kano presented on camels as it had been historically done, he used steamships to transport them between Accra, Kumasi, Sekondi, and Egbeti seaports of Lagos. He was indeed the first to develop the route. This strategic business innovation and contact with Europeans helped to consolidate his wealth and business model. Circa 1906, he reportedly began broadening his interest by trading in beads, necklaces, European clothing materials, and other goods. His equally business-obsessed mother, who had never remarried, died in Accra around 1908. After her death, he focused his attention on new opportunities in the two biggest markets of the sub-region then, Lagos and Kano. Dantata maintained a house in Bebeji and chose to have no property in the larger trading town of Kano, maybe out of his logical paranoia that it could be confiscated again. He did not own a house there but was satisfied with the accommodation given to him by his patoma, landlord. When the British deposed the successor of Yusufu in 1903, they appointed Abbas as the Emir of Kano. As part of a recompilation, Abbas returned the confiscated lands around Kano to the Agalawas. Dantata built his first house in the then empty Sarari area, an extension of Koki in Kano. In 1912, when the Europeans started to show interest in the export of groundnut, Dantata was already familiar with the manner by which traders could make fortunes by buying cocoa for Europeans in the Gold Coast, and his trading antecedents gave him several advantages such as language. He had learned to speak spattering English, wealth, and age. Despite the famine in Kano in 1914, he quickly dominated the groundnut purchasing business via promotions, loans, and contacts. In 1918, the UK-headquartered Royal Niger Company, which later became the United Africa Company, UAC, searched for an agent to purchase groundnuts for them, and Dantata responded to their offer. It is reported that he used to purchase about half of all the nuts for UAC in northern Nigeria. By 1922, Dantata had reportedly become the richest businessman in Kano, and in 1929, when the Bank of British West Africa opened a branch in Kano, Dantata placed 20 camel loads of silver coins in it. For religious reasons, his money collected no interest. Shortly before his death, he reportedly pointed to 60 groundnut pyramids in Kano and said, quote, "These are all mine." Dantata applied for a direct license to export groundnut in 1940 on the same level as the UAC. However, it was not granted because of worldwide military and economic conditions. In 1953-1954, he became a licensed buying agent, which allowed him to sell directly to the Nigerian Groundnut Marketing Board instead of another firm. He had many business connections both in Nigeria and in other West African countries, particularly the Gold Coast. He dealt not only in groundnuts and kola nuts, but also in other merchandise. He traded in cattle, cloth, beads, precious stones, grains, rope, and other valuables. Dantata made a pilgrimage arch to Mecca via boat in the 1920s. On this trip, he also went to England and was presented to King George V, and like a pious Muslim, financed the pilgrimages of other Muslims to Mecca, a tradition that continues amongst his descendants till today. He died in 1955 as the richest individual in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, and left clear instructions that his company, Hassan, Dantata and Sons, must be kept running. He similarly urged his senior staff members and grown children to avoid clashes with other wealthy merchants of Kano. they should take care of their relatives, especially the poor among them. He was buried in his house in the Sarari ward of Kano Emirate, the didactic. Dantata was hardworking, frugal, pious, and unpretentiously peace-loving in his personal habits. He was also a good financial manager. He was a creative or value-innovating entrepreneur who eschewed complacency in business strategizing. His sense of fairness and high familial bonding with his workers, like both Alhaji Babana Al-Hassan, who served as his chief accountant, and Garba Mesekeli, who was his financial controller for 38 years respectively, was exemplary. Dantata did not manage his business the conventional top-down way from behind a chief executive's desk, but involved himself in the daily scrum of business with his workers. And that's it on the show tonight. I am Bola Oba. Have a good night.